So you want to make a short film? Great. This is the podcast edition to listen to. My two guests have been there, done that. They've got a few t-shirts, and hopefully they will impart a few wisdom bombs on you as it pertains to the short film production process that will make your film a success. Dennis Jeantet and John Giordano, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
The film we are talking about, of course, is your baby, Another Man's Trash. It comes down to basically a heartwarming yet funny drama where John and Dennis are the protagonists. John plays Theodore Fuoco. He's a businessman who comes to terms with his prejudices when he crosses paths with Redmond Bale, portrayed by Dennis. And he happens to be a talented but down on his luck homeless man who is a former celebrity chef. So the film premiered in September 2023 in Philadelphia, their hometowns, and it went on to the festival circuit as well, which we'll get into. But guys, I want to start with the seed of the idea, the genesis of the idea. But I'm sure that when you start to talk about that, you probably have to start first with Playhouse West. So take me through what Playhouse West is and how the seed of the idea got started.
So Playhouse West started in 2012, I think. They just had their 12th anniversary. And John and I were kind of considered like some of the OGs. I started about 2 months into the whole, once Tony came. So Tony Savant's the teacher. He was in LA for 26 years, and then he grew up in Philly area. So he wanted to bring the school back to Philadelphia because there was really nothing like it. There was a big hole for repertory theater, classes, in my opinion. So John and I met probably 4 or 5 months into that, into the school once it started. And we just kind of clicked and bonded. We had a similar sense of humor, just really clicked when it came to writing and ideas. So Another Man's Trash kind of started way back then. Just sat on my computer for a decade almost. And John and I always knew we kind of wanted to work together. We did scenes together and we were writing sketches. And I guess the idea of Another Man's Trash came about from something called, Spoon River, which is a popular book. I don't know if anybody's gotten into that, but it's part of an exercise from Playhouse West. There's Spoon Rivers, fantasies, alones, all these different exercises that Tony would implement. And I guess I wanted to play a character that I was not familiar with. So the idea of playing a homeless man kind of popped in and just kind of developed from there. And John, you can talk a little bit about how we got together and created more of it.
Exactly. So the Spoon River opened up the idea of the homeless character. And I think Dennis brought to me, this was years ago. So it started 7 years ago when Dennis brought me the idea with his character and another character. The other character being the complete opposite end of the spectrum, Teddy Fuoco, who is a businessman and seemingly full of himself and on a rising star in his own mind. What a great concept. All right, so we have two opposite ends of the spectrum, two different characters. So Dennis and I took his idea that he birthed, and we ran with it, and we turned it into a story. And the first, I guess I would say the first 2 acts were complete 7 years ago. Then it went on to the shelf, right? The idea, like many do in this industry, they kind of get put aside, other things happen. Life takes you different directions. Fast forward 5 to 6 years, COVID happens, and Dennis had just gotten back from Los Angeles. So he and I, although we stayed friends, we weren't working together anymore. He was out there a couple of years, so came back for COVID. He and I linked back up as you do, and then we brought it back off the shelf. We finished writing the script, and we knew we had something special here. So a lot of time went into it, but it stood the test of time, the core story, and we just applied some of our experiences since the original coming together, and we polished it up and we went to work to go to get it made. So that brings us to the making process. I don't know if you want to stop there, Paul.
Sure. But speaking of LA, both of you had stints in Los Angeles, and I'm curious, like Dennis, you studied and found work at the American Film Institute. Both of you have done short films, feature films as actors in your own right. John, you have a degree from Pace University in film studies, and you also found some work out west. Is it safe to say that the both of you wouldn't have had the gumption to take this on if it weren't for your previous experiences out west and the experiences that you were gathering?
For sure. The gumption comes with life experience, in my opinion, education, and collecting a series of life experiences, you need the confidence to get through the entire process. And in my opinion, confidence comes from both experience and knowledge collected over a series of years to take on something of this magnitude. Maybe people do it without those ingredients. For me, like I said, I mean, in order for me to feel like a professional, I need to, feel like I'm equipped. So yes, in short, the answer is yes, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100% agree. You take the experiences you've also had on sets. For example, so we just went to the Playhouse West Philly Film Festival. And a lot of those filmmakers are first time. They're getting their feet wet and they don't know a lot about lighting and sound and all these things, but they have to make mistakes in order to get better. So John and I have been on sets, we've written things, we've done some short films, we've been on features, big sets like House of Cards I worked on for several years. And I learned a lot about filmmaking from that as opposed to just, acting school. They're totally separate things. You're watching one in person, you're watching amazing A-list actors, and then you're in a Playhouse West where you're getting hands-on training. So you take both of those experiences. Out in LA, the AFI was actually really, for a student product, that it's arguably the best in the country. It's right up there. So big budgets, and they don't take things seriously. All those students go on to be big producers or filmmakers. So I've learned a lot just in LA from my short stint there. I didn't really get a full run. I mean, I was there for a couple of years and then unfortunately lost my dad, but then COVID happened right after that. So it was it's almost meant to come back to Philadelphia just to be with family. And then Another Man's Trash arguably would have never been made if I had not moved back here. So something I take from that.
Well, speaking of budgets, so you get to the point where you get together and you say, all right, let's do this. Let's make this thing happen. As far as deciding you're going to produce this thing and make it, now, when you're doing short films, most likely it means limited budget, limited resources. What were you thinking right off the bat? Were you thinking, let's get as much money and resources as possible for this? Or do you go along the track of simplicity and restraint? Or does the script inform what you're going to do?
Well, that's a great question too. What I was going to respond on was, as educated as we were or experienced, in different areas, you're always a student. We never put together a film of this magnitude, and this is a short film, which cost a certain amount, but neither of us had had that experience. So going into that was quite daunting, and you kind of learn as you go with a lot of that stuff. Like Dennis was saying earlier, there are, really, school doesn't really prepare you for how to truly produce. Not in my opinion. I studied at Pace University and I got a film degree, but I was a concentration in screenwriting and, camera movement and stuff like that. But as far as like actually getting it made, that's a whole different education. And I think that comes with just experience. So we didn't realize, I say that to say this, I don't think we realized it would be as expensive to get done as it was. We figured we were making a short film. We were toying with the idea, should it be non-union? Should it be union? We knew that we would love for it to be a SAG film. But the ins and outs of that or something, like as far as creating a film, making it happen and producing it, we had no experience with that. So when when we linked up with the team that we did, that's when the answers came. And you either decide, oh, this is too much for me, I want to pump the brakes and not do this, or not do it that way, or you say, you know what, let's jump in and let's make this happen. So that's when the fundraising began. And I don't know if you want us to go into that yet.
Sure.
Well, I think just to tag on that, I don't think we ever expected it to be as big as it was either. This was a product of being productive because of COVID. There was no auditioning going on. There's not a lot of work. So this was an idea just to get our acting chops flowing and let's make something instead of just waiting for nothing to come around. And I don't think we knew that it was going to be the budget, like John said, because we just wanted to make a short film. And then once, like you said, we got this team going on and all of a sudden we get a name attached to it. Well, that exploded everything, because not only did that help fundraising, but it also made the budget bigger just by itself. So then we were tasked, John and I, to raise even more money, which was stressful of how are we going to do that and who do we ask? And, we can get into that next. But yeah, it was not originally going to be as big as it was at all. I don't think we thought that. So,
and just to one little point to add to that, once you get the name attached, now you know it's a SAG project, right? So that the answers start to come as you decide on other things. The other things get decided for you. So that's a great example as how you figure things out. All right, we have a name, now it must be union.
Mm-hmm. So you have a name, and suddenly your prospective budget mushrooms. Once you saw the number, did you want to run the other way? Did you want to go, oh my God, what are we doing? Or was it full steam ahead? Was there apprehension?
It was a little bit of both. It was definitely, there was some stress and panic times, and because, John and I quite honestly raised 90% of this on our own. Little help when it came to the fundraising, but yeah, it was a little overwhelming. But I think part of fundraising is just being a people person, first and foremost. I'm very old school. So I went pounded the pavement. I went to restaurants and places I get cheeseburgers at, and I just asked for money from anybody. And often, especially in Philadelphia, and your family and friends and restaurants, they want to help one way or another. And they did that. And John had connections, and so we got it done. But it wasn't that the initial budget ever started at one level. It raised and it raised and it raised, and it was like, go get more money. And the crew and everything, John and I couldn't have guessed what above the line and below the line was going to be. We just knew that it started at 15,000. What was our brain that we could make this thing? And no, that wasn't even remotely close. So
it's a fraction.
It kept going up. Let's just say that.
You have a budget sheet, right? And you're talking with your team, and everything's laid out. And as things got more and more real, the numbers continued to go up and up and up and up. What started as, maybe a $25,000 film ended up being, okay, we need to raise 60, 70 grand.
Wow.
And that number came to us after we were already in so deep that we needed to, we were forced to go out and find the rest, which in a way was nothing we would ever want to have that pressure. But in another way, we got it done. So maybe you rise to the occasion. Maybe they get it done.
I can't imagine being told that a number like that and then thinking, this isn't my wheelhouse. I got to go and ask for this. And then somehow, some way you get the money. And I would imagine that the pressure just compounds from there. It's like, okay, we got the money. We got to do this. We have to execute. And we have a name.
Yeah.
The
name helps.
What was there doubt at that point still, where it's like, okay, all systems are go, we're at the top of the roller coaster and we're heading down it, we're going for this ride. Did the anxiety and the stress ever subside, or did it end when you knew you had the resources that you needed?
Well, so we didn't have all of the resources that were needed. We had just enough to get started on shooting, and then during the process, even the production, even during production, Dennis and I are thinking in the back of our heads, where the heck are we going to get the rest of this money? So I was wildly distracted when it came to acting in this thing, as far as all of the hats we had to wear and the big undertaking of producing it, finding the money. Acting was just another task. But in a perfect world, that's the only thing I would have had to worry about. That's what we wanted, just to think about that. But that was not in the cards.
Yeah, you're probably referring to like the day that you got to set. We couldn't really focus on the acting until the day we got there, ready to shoot it, because we were 5 minutes before, we were still thinking of other things. Now, luckily, we wrote it. We knew the characters inside and out, so we didn't have to worry about the dialogue and the acting part. That kind of came natural once we were there. But I guess what John's saying is that until we showed up, the acting was almost an afterthought. And then we kind of were able to turn off everything else because we had to rely on the team at that point. We show up, no longer John and I thinking of producing stuff, even though we did at moments, but like we kind of had to let that go and just say, okay, we know we trust these people. This is why they're here. And let's get this thing going for the next 5 days.
That was challenging. To do.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of like prepping for the scene and I'm getting asked where lunch is.
Yeah.
So, it kept taking, maybe I'm speaking for myself. It kept taking me out of it. And I had to force myself to get back into the mindset of the character. So it was tough.
So being actors, writers, producers, directors, wearing all those hats, it sounds sexy, but it's not for the faint of heart, right?
Not at all.
No, we didn't direct it, but at one point we thought about co-directing and wearing all 4 hats, but that was you could tell by how we're speaking now, it's quite overwhelming. But it's probably best that we didn't. But we'll probably get into that later, how sometimes directions went other ways than how we thought it would or how we wrote it. But it was a lot of hats to think about, like you said, on set when you're trying to act and you're in every scene. Him and I are in every scene one way or another, and people are coming up asking about food or where's the next location or where, that's why we had 2 other people that were supposed to be answering. They did a good job. It's just sometimes we wanted to be involved because this is our baby, and we want some control over stuff like that because we want to make sure this is to the best of our abilities and kind of lead the team as well. So,
Paul, just to go back to what you were saying, as far as like this industry or making your own movies or even like trying to be an actor, as far as it being glamorous or sexy, for people who don't know, it's not. The percentage of sexiness or the glamorous part. I can speak for Dennis and I on this. We've seen such little of that we better damn well be very passionate about this in order to even think about it.
I can count the sexy moments on 2 fingers in 15 years.
Exactly.
It's a rush when you're doing it, but I don't know about John. I don't know that we really enjoyed it until after it was wrapped. And then we actually took a break. We were like, I can't talk about this. I can't think about it for like a week. I don't even think him and I spoke on the phone. Like we actually said, all right, I'll talk to you in like a week. We were so burnt out that I don't know on set that I actually enjoyed it. I just knew that this was gonna be something that I could be proud of. And once it was over, then I can settle down a little bit because it was just so much leading up to it all. That makes sense. So yeah, the sexiness was quite there, but there's still a rush to it every time I got to the set every day. I was still very excited about what I was about to do. I don't know that I fully enjoyed it.
No. How could you? You're worrying about so many things. You're wearing all these hats. You got to get it done. And just knowing now that the pressure of you just had enough just to get going. You didn't have it all there for production, post-production, everything. You just had enough to get going. You had your team to rely on, but still it's like we have enough to get the shoot done. We've got our permits, we have our locations, and now we're filming. Great. We'll worry about the rest later. But as it pertains to the shoot, what went right? What went wrong? And for the things that went wrong, how did you remedy them?
A lot went right. We want to start with a positive.
Yeah.
Man, we were talking about this at the Playhouse West Film Festival just 2 days ago. When it comes to shooting, we were outdoors quite often, and the weather was perfect. The clouds were letting us be lit properly. We were like dodging rainstorms. And I just want to say for anybody aspiring to do this, if you set your mind to something and you have an idea and you get going, the universe, whatever you want to call it, will reward you, right? It'll tell you, you know what? Here's a gift. Go ahead, keep going. And then that'll kind of solidify for you that, all right, maybe I am doing the right thing. And it feels really good. And then, you will be challenged. And it takes somebody to continue through those challenges to like really see it through all the way to the end. But I'm sure it doesn't happen every time, but if it's right, doors will open, people will help you, and you will get it through. You will get through it. So just keep at it.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the things that went right and what went wrong. Like you said, we got lucky being outdoors. We got good weather, because even when you're leading up to it and you look at the weather report and it showed rain, that what do we do if it rains? We can't shoot. We only have these 5 days. I mean, we got John Hurley flying in from LA, which we're actually shooting our schedule around him. If we had one single rain day, I don't know what we would have done. Luckily, I don't have to think about that now, but these are the challenges. The pre-production is key. We spent 6 months on just pre-production. We got to give Kimberly a lot of credit. She gave us hours of her time. We Zoomed constantly.
Yeah.
Came up with, the scheduling. What scene do we do first in order? What day do we do what location? There's so much that goes on, and if you prep well enough, things will typically lead positive. Like the things will turn out, as opposed to just things going wrong because you've already prepared for that one way or another. You can always adjust a little bit. I mean, there's some shots that we would have liked to got, but we just ran out of time, or whatever. But overall, a lot of things did go well. It went really smooth. The only hiccup maybe was the very first day. We were just doing like little interior and exterior shots at Theodore's house in Center City. And I think just getting used to the crew, everybody's meeting each other for the first time. We're not sure what speed they work out or what, how they like to shoot things. Even though we talked about it, probably took a little longer at first for that just first couple scenes to get the hang of things. And then it was pretty smooth sailing at that point. And everything was like a 10, 12-hour day. We only shot 5 days for a 30-minute film. So I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's aggressive.
So a lot of things went really smooth. I mean, locations were great. We scouted all those prior. We didn't need a permit because I think you can have up to a maximum amount of crew and cast on a set without needing a permit.
I'm small enough.
Is it 25? I think maybe. I'm not sure the exact number, but you can't be over that and then you need a permit. So we picked the street off of Market Street, I think the 23rd or something around there. And it was a side street that cars could go down, but it really wasn't a lot of traffic, maybe a couple cars in an hour. And we just had some crew members at either side just kind of blocking. And if somebody wanted to come down, just politely say, can you hold off for a few minutes? But nobody complained. People kind of were just standing around watching at times. I mean, Paul, you were there actually in that area and in that scene. So you saw the setup and how cars were not, like, it was a good strategic place to be. So those kind of things were well thought out. It wasn't just random that we just set up there.
Which, by the way, The Hipster should be a movie in it of itself. Well,
we made it. That's one of our. We really wish we could have showed Jill a hell of a lot more because you were hilarious, and we just didn't have. You got to remember, like, we had to cut 15 pages out of the script, and that's 15 minutes. We also had to cut down. I guess.
Well,
what went wrong with The Hipster? We didn't get enough coverage.
I was going to say, the one regret I have of Paul is nobody had the camera on him when it was across the street doing all that brilliant, heckling, and I would have loved to cut to that. That would have been great. I don't know how.
John, we wanted to cut into that so badly.
There was nothing.
And it wasn't until after the shoot, because John and I we're in our character. We're not thinking about shot lists.
Yeah, we're not direct. We didn't direct.
Right.
So
Yeah.
And then we're like, because John and I sat with Andrew, our good friend who edited the whole thing. We did that for like a month. We'll talk about that. But there were moments where we were like, damn, we just want to cut across the street to the hipster. We want to get something here, or just didn't have the footage to do that. Or we had to scrap a lot of things too, which was tough. So we had a couple other shots of you, but it was just for whatever reason, it wasn't working, and at time, and we had to get it to 30 minutes exactly. And we were all just dying. Like we loved what you did. I know it was a small thing, but we were dying. I wish I could have put you more in it. I'm really sorry.
No worries, guys. What John and Dennis are referring to is I had a cameo in the film as a hipster who accosts Redmond as he is cooking dinner on the street. Absolutely. It was maroon pants and a blue 70s style shirt with a mustache. And what amazes me ultimately is that somehow I came up with that wardrobe. I supplied that wardrobe. I don't know how.
Yeah,
but I do not own
in your repertoire.
I don't own those items anymore. They are long gone.
Oh, you know that's your weekend get up every year.
Come on. No, it was actually like
You look great.
Thank you. Like I'll keep a funky article of clothing here or there just for like a rainy day shoot such as that. So I'm glad that I remember taking the tag off just for that shirt, just to do that day. And I didn't fit in the shirt anymore, and I happily let it go. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see what we're talking about. But even in a short film, there's fat to cut, and it happens. It wasn't my first time. It won't be the last. But again, just being on the set with you guys, being among friends, watching you give birth to this baby is its pleasure and its joy and its reward in its own right. So thank you for having me on that day.
And in this instance, though, Paul, truly, like it wasn't even fat cut. It was like we didn't even get the footage. But you're right. That happens all the time in the industry. Nobody takes it personally. It's not because the performance isn't great. It's because either there's time constraints for the total piece, or it doesn't work for whatever reason. Yeah, or you sucked and we really had to cut it out. But in your case, it definitely was not that.
No.
It's always nice to get friends involved. Several people that we knew that just wanted to be involved. That's special, because Philly's it's a small bubble of people that everybody knows, and try to help each other out in one way or another. So
yeah, just to put a button on that real quick.
Yes.
Just to put a button on all this section, like to what Dennis was saying is, we met the camera guys and the crew the first time. Like when we got together, we had to like adjust. For anybody making a movie, like we got very lucky that all worked out, and it only gave us a hiccup for half a day. Like work with the people that if you know people, put together a crew that you really know each other, and work with those people, because that's a huge leg up. We got very lucky that we all meshed, and the guys that were doing the lighting, the camera work, and the sound, they were very, although they are students themselves, a lot of them, or semi-professional, a lot of them are not doing narratives regularly. They're doing like other kind of video work. We got lucky. They were very professional, and it came together. But I would not suggest trying that to anybody else, because I don't know. We had a miracle. It was really creative.
You got to invest in the crew. That's number one. How often have you watched a movie that looked great but you couldn't hear a thing, or sound was terrible, or sound was great for some reason, but there was blur, or just awkward cuts and things. Like the money should go to the crew first and foremost. I mean,
what are you looking at? You want a name? That's huge.
Well, yeah, of course.
Well, speaking of names, let's get to that. So obviously, if you could ever secure an actor with name recognition, obviously that adds weight and luster to your project. How did you manage to secure Seinfeld's John O'Hurley?
Kimberly. So Kimberly Scarab, who was our producer, line producer, and also executive producer. So she has a relationship with John. They work together on other things, and she brought it to him, and he literally did her a favor. We paid him well, but for actors of that magnitude, a favor is still getting paid well, but just choosing to do your short. So he chose our short because of Kimberly. So we do have to give that to her. And as far as getting a name attached to your piece, so important. We like to think that we can do it without people who have names because we're trying to make a name for ourselves. When it comes to valuing your film, you could literally value it or get it valued at a certain number and then get money as a loan from people who lend money to films if you have the right name. If it will move the needle, it'll guarantee a certain return, and you can get the money to pay that person, even on the higher magnitude than O'Hurley. Like, it only cost us like maybe 10 grand, whereas some actors might require 2 million. But that doesn't mean you can't get them. If you can get as a letter of intent, you can get that 2 million just because that actor will value your film at that. And then you pay him with that. You find the money to finish the film, but him or her, excuse me. But yes, very important getting a name. And then other people want to be a part of it too. Like we had Early from Seinfeld. So now all of a sudden I went to some of my connections and they were like, I want to be involved. I want to be a producer on that film. Here's a check. You know what I'm saying? Also, we should talk about Phil Abundance, it's actually going to help people in the community and in the city, starving people that are in Philadelphia. Sure, I want to be a part of that. So like there's a lot of fundraising tactics that are applicable that we did with this film.
Just incredible, because it creates a spark. Sure. Once you get that name, doesn't it? Like you said.
Yeah, certainly. People flock to come to that, especially.
It's a lot easier to pitch an idea like that. Even without him, I think the story's there. Everybody is, obviously John O'Hurley enjoyed the script. And he wouldn't have done it if he thought it was garbage. So there's something to be said about that. It's not just a favor. He can't. It is his reputation and name. He can't put himself out there. But once you get somebody like that, yeah, of course, you put it online. You start marketing it. You go to other people. Now, a short film like this is completely donation. There's no return on investment for this. Some people gave a lot of money just because they thought it was a good cause. They wanted to see John and I succeed for no other reason. You can talk about getting a feature film made and then there's return. Obviously that would be the goal, but for a short, it's really just about getting ourselves work and hopefully leading to something bigger. And, anything from that return is just gravy at that point.
John, you acted with Mr. O'Hurley in this film. What was his bedside manner on set?
He's a complete professional. He is giving in a scene, is working with him. First, I had to wipe the sweat from my brow because I was intimidated, as you would be working with someone who's that skilled and who has that much tenure in the business. But I just focused my attention on him, and as we were taught by Tony, Meisner, like, listen, take what you're given from someone of his magnitude. It's great. He's offering gifts in the scene, and then you could really just kind of live in it. And that's it's a challenge almost, I feel like, being an amateur actor, because if you're acting among other amateurs, it's kind of hard to find your skill level because you're maybe not getting what you should be getting from like someone else who's an amateur. So that's kind of another catch-22 of it. It's difficult about this business. Is like, it's hard to get an agent without having the credits. So like, then how do you get the credits to get the agent, right? It's hard to act well in the scene without a good co-star. So how do you like show yourself acting well without like having someone to feed off of? So it's the beginning steps of this business are so difficult. That's why so many people drop off. The cream does rise at the top. So that's why I will also say, like, everybody tells you it's 0.1% of the people that are going to make it in this business. Yeah, but how many of them are not going to last through the first stage? A lot of them. But anyway,
that's indicative of passion or not having passion, right?
Yes. You must find a good restaurant, Joe. That's my personal experience. It takes time. Passion, and you got to really keep going. But anyway, working with O'Hurley was fantastic because he was a professional. He's not like, when the scene's cut, he goes back to his phone, he goes to eat. He wasn't really chatty, but certainly not. He was certainly a gentleman. You come up to him to talk to him, he was happy to, engage in conversation. But he definitely isn't a chatty guy. He's like in his own world. He knows that he's on a different level, and we could tell by being in his company. But he was a gentleman, he's a professional, and he gives you a lot in the scene to work with, as you can imagine. It was great.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It's good to have that good memory.
Yeah.
So you get the footage onto the hard drive. It's all there. Now, was there a gap between photography and post? Did you have to go off and raise more money to get post-production done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
tell me about that.
Yeah. So so we had the film in the can. It was shot. Now we needed to raise money to pay back some of the people that haven't been paid, and then also to pay for post-production. So this was the second person that I had a connection to who gave a pretty significant amount as far as the funds for this film. So I went to my friend Kyla Baldwin, and she's a partner at Anna Luis, her firm in Philadelphia, and she is from Delco, and she's just like a champion of people who are trying to make something of themselves who don't have a lot. She came from modest means, built herself up to being a partner at her firm, and she's a bit of a philanthropist as well. So when I told her, and she doesn't even know me that well. She knows my sister really well. But when I told her of our mission and what we were setting out to do and finish, it wasn't O'Hurley so much that got her involved. It was the fact, and we should talk about this too, that Phil Abundance was a big part of. We made a big part of our film, and we wanted to give back some of the money that was taken in to Phil Abundance to feed the hungry in the city. After all, the subject matter involves homeless people. It would only be right that we would actually contribute to helping them. So because of that aspect of it, and her knowing my family, she donated a significant amount that brought us back to par, and we were able to get things paid for. So it was huge.
That's what sets your project apart, I think. What you just mentioned, the connection with Phil Abundance, because that ties in the whole passion with charity angle that you guys took with this, with the project, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So back in the stages of writing, getting the story together, it just became apparent that here's an opportunity, since we're the subject matter of homelessness exists. And it's kind of funny that we started it years ago before COVID, and we dove back into it during a time where it's, the epidemic of homelessness is now, the worst that it ever was. Mm-hmm. So it became especially clear that let's try for the win-win, and let's try to get Phil Abundance involved. They were sketchy at first. It was hard to get them to kind of like link up with us because they have to be defensive in that way. But eventually they could see that our minds were in the right place, and we were able to use their brand, and they have a fantastic brand. It's well known in Philadelphia. So just having that element in the film, that led to other people wanting to be involved. And then how good does it feel knowing that your film provided 3,000 meals for the city? And it did. Our film ended up providing 3,000 meals for those in need, and we got to make a movie and act in it with John O'Hurley. So
not only that, but we did a food drive after as well, which Paul, you showed up to, and we got 560 pounds of food.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we had to have a big truck come to my house and pick it all up. It was great. This was a good cause. It was nice to be attached to all that. It was kind of our plan to get it back, like John said.
Love to do it on a bigger level too. If we can make this into a feature, I mean, the sky's the limit. What you can do.
That was another question. Do you have aspirations for a feature version of this, or is it just going to stay as it is?
100%. We talk about it all the time. I think that was kind of the goal. This is proof of concept. We've won a couple awards. I think everybody knows the story is pretty solid, at least from what we hear, what we think. So it could be, in fact, it started as 48 pages or so, which is in between a feature and a short, which is a weird number of pages, but easier to write pages than take away, because you're shortening what things that you wrote that you love or whatever. I'd rather expand the story and the characters to show more that we couldn't fit into 30 minutes. There's things when we watch the film that we go, oh, if only we could dive a little bit more into that person, or where did that guy come from a little bit more. So the idea of a feature, I think it's the natural step. How to get there, I don't think we are quite sure yet, but writing it is obviously priority number one, and most of the features already written. So, I would love to do a feature.
You have the ultimate proof of concept already. It's all right there for people to see.
Yeah, which they can watch on Amazon Prime.
Absolutely. Yeah. Available to rent and buy.
That's right.
So you get it done. You have it edited. You have it in the can. You've completed your film. You have a name attached to it, and you're giving back to charity as well, connecting with the story. And that in itself is its own reward. But you reach higher, you extend, and the story continues when you put that movie out into the world. You premiered in September 2023 in Philadelphia, and then from there you went on to festivals. Take me through premiering the movie, and take me through what happened over the course of a couple days at these festivals.
Sure. So we were at what's the name of the church? City Life, down by the stadiums in FDR Park. Beautiful renovated church inside that we had a connection to. I think we had 250 people show up, put on a red carpet event. It was amazing. So many people saw it for the first time. Special event. And
shout out Kevin Heckenberg.
Yeah, Kevin Hackenberg, who we linked up with. He was always in our corner from day one. As soon as I showed him the script, he just wanted to be a part one way or another. He ended up coming on as a producer, helped us out behind the scenes, a lot of advice and stuff like that. So shout out to Kevin for sure. So he helped put on that premiere in Philly. And then it was only a couple weeks later, I think John and I were flying out to LA and then to Maryland. So John, I guess, so I don't have to talk. You can tell him a little bit about maybe Tarzana and Chesapeake, and then we'll get to Playhouse, I guess, after that.
Yeah. So Tarzana was originally going to be the Burbank Film Festival. The connection that we had at Burbank, he started Tarzana a few years ago. So the one thing I would say about the festival circuit is this is important. It is if you're going to pay to have your film considered by any festival, make sure that you first have some kind of connection where they know that your film is being submitted. Otherwise, you are wasting your time and money. Festivals will not take you as just a random submit. There's way too many of those, and you don't even, I don't think, get viewed half the time. And they always take in the people that they know or are connected to in one way or the other. This is why Dennis and I's film, Another Man's Trash, only got into 3 film festivals and one that we put on our own. I don't just believe, I know that if we had connections elsewhere, the film would have done well and got into other festivals if we knew this information. So whoever does the film festival circuit for your film, don't even bother submitting unless you have a contact there. And even then, you're not guaranteed to get it. But anyway, so we did have a connection to the Burbank Film Festival, and the guy who was running that started Tarzana. Tarzana's in the Valley, right next to like Encino. So it's a great little part of Los Angeles. So we got into it, and once we were in, we won. So that's pretty cool, So now I'm thinking back in retrospect, Dennis and I were kind of mortified that we didn't get into so many that we submitted to, spent thousands of dollars submitting. So we were like, oh man, we just got into one. And then the only one we got into, or at least up to that point, the only one that we seen our film at, won Best Comedy at that festival. So pretty cool. From there, we couldn't even stay for the award ceremony because we had to jump on a red-eye flight to go to the next festival, Chesapeake in Maryland. So John O'Hurley happened to live and does live in Santa Monica, which is right next to where the festival was located. He went to the festival representing us and accepted our award for Best Comedy. So we had O'Hurley accept for us at that Tarzan festival. And I'll Dennis, do you want to take Chesapeake? Talk about that?
Yeah, and just from hearing what you're saying, I totally agree. I think that's sound advice. It doesn't. Some people who are viewing this may say, "Oh, it's just bitter," or "You're upset that you didn't get in." Well, it's not true. It's 100% the truth. We're a 30-minute film that makes it extremely difficult. Even though they accept 40 minutes or less on a short film, if you're over 15 minutes, half the people won't even watch. They just won't. It's all about making money. They want people in the seats. They want as many family and friends and people just coming to see as many short films over that weekend as possible. And that's just is what it is. So we got plenty of feedback. We love your film. Too long. After submitting to several of these festivals and not getting in, we were quite disappointed. And we actually at some point just stopped submitting based on those feedbacks of it being 30 minutes or just not knowing a content. And it's just kind of sad that you have a good film, but it won't get seen because of politics or length of time or just not knowing. But what do we have to email the contact and get on the phone with them? You kind of do. That's
95% of our submissions, we got zero feedback. There was no feedback. It was just
a couple. Yeah.
It was just no thank you. So I firmly believe there's no bitterness at all. I'm just on a business standpoint. That's
why I'm trying to say it's not bitter at all. It's just the truth. And I think people need to know that when they're submitting to festivals, like you said. I think that's sound advice.
So there was no feedback or no reply, even when you had a named talent attached?
It was as brutal as an audition session. You get the no, and you never hear from anyone.
There was a couple, even like in Philadelphia, in the international one, right? You would think that our film is based in Philadelphia, and we know everybody almost on that committee, and it was like, sorry, you're either too long or political aspects or something.
Even when people.
Yeah, it's the festival thing is kind of disappointing. I don't think that's always the best route to go. I think a lot of people put their short films in these little tiny festivals that no one's ever heard of just to get some badges. I don't think that really helps anything personally, but I think Tarzan and Chesapeake, they had a pretty good reputation, even if they're not huge. So we picked out strategically certain festivals, of course, because we're not going to spend a fortune on wasting our time. But the two that we went to, and then the Playhouse, they were still great. Like we had a good time. It was well received, so we were not disappointed at all. We flew across the country to go to one of them. So, and in retrospect, winning, that felt good. And then I think we at that point just wanted to focus more on getting this in front of as many people as possible, getting it up on Amazon. That's where all the real viewers are. Mm-hmm. Somewhere just streaming. So we kind of switched our strategy, I think, at that point. I don't want to downplay the festivals to a degree where we just didn't enjoy them, because we did. Chesapeake was a nice area. It was nice people. It was a different crowd than maybe what our film would have shown at, a little older crowd. And but it was still well received and everybody enjoyed it. So the Playhouse just happened, and that was kind of special just because we'd started there. That's like full circle. 11 years ago, they did the first Philadelphia Playhouse Film Festival, where I had a couple short films in there. And just being back in front of a room of 100, 150 people, students and stuff, that we were in their seat a decade ago, it's just nice. And then we were recognized for best screenplay from the grand jury for that one. So just, accolades like that. It lets you know that, you're on the right page. And then proof of concept. That's why we want to make this a feature.
So
I feel we have so much more to show with this film.
To button up the festival circuit and talking about that, I think it's very it's very important to be in a part of festivals, because industry people are at these festivals, and that's where you could get your film seen for it to be optioned to be made. It's just difficult to get in, especially the big ones. So try to work your network to get into some of these great festivals. And it also it's kind of a necessary thing to do before you go into distribution, because once you do go to distribution, you can't go to the festival. So that's the nature of things. That's the order of things. You go to the festival first. You try to get a buzz going about your film. Hopefully you find someone that wants to make it or distribute it, and then you go into distribution after that. So you don't have to go to through the festival circuit, but if you can get in, it's a great way to get distribution, which is the next step in the process.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the unfortunate reality, or the unfortunate truth as far as it goes with festivals is that the quality of the piece doesn't matter.
Not necessarily.
Your connections matter.
Primarily. In my, yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Just like a lot of things in this business, it mirrors, it reflects everything else in this industry. A lot of the actors who continue to work on television have a relationship with the casting director. The casting director knows that they're going to be good on set and knows that they have a skill level. So then they just keep getting casted, right? So then what about all the other people who are just as skilled or maybe even better, for a role? Doesn't matter. They rather know for sure that they're not going to be embarrassed, that the professional that they know is going to show up and be professional. Why take a risk on somebody else? So you got to break through. That's the hardest part in this industry, whether it's making films and breaking through, or acting or directing, whatever it is you want to do. Getting into their circle is your biggest challenge, and you see that on every facet of the entire process. Doesn't matter what part you're aspiring to, that's going to be your largest challenge.
I think that's why making your own work is so important. Instead of waiting for somebody else to give you work, make your own work. That's easier said than done. There's budget and crew and everything involved. It's easy for a celebrity to say, just go out and make your own film.
Yeah.
Endless amounts of money, but it can be done. I mean, hell, you can make a movie on an iPhone now with the right lighting setup, but just got to do it. Just got to make your own work. So, and then you're showcasing your talent, and hopefully that gets recognized.
Right. Irregardless of if it makes $1 or not, you can take the iPhone, you can go on TikTok, you have the avenue and the technology to manifest your idea and then market your idea directly to your target audience. So in that way, perhaps we're in the midst of an independent renaissance. And I'm sure you would agree that we need that now, given the intellectual property nature of proper Hollywood and how chances just aren't taken anymore.
I mean, it's awful. We're at a place where Hollywood is producing things that have no artistic value, but at the same time, like you said, the independent world is paramount for the artistic value stuff. So we're able to produce great pieces. Will they be seen on the main streaming services and stuff like that? Is hopefully the cream rises to the top, right? But I think it was Vince Vaughn I saw in an interview saying IP these days, it's like he gave the example of, let's make a movie about Battleship, the game, as opposed to, now I'm directly quoting Vince Vaughn, so I'm sure a lot of people saw this interview, as opposed to an IP used to be like a girl turned 16, in the 80s, like with the comedies and stuff like that, or in his example, old school. What would it be like for guys at this stage of the game to join a fraternity? That was IP. Now it's like, let's make a movie about the game Battleship, because everybody knows the game Battleship, they're going to watch the movie strictly on that fact alone. So where is the artistic value? That goes right out the window. And I think that we're kind of stuck remaking things and, with, it's just a guarantee to like produce in the box office based on like familiarity. But what about originality? That kind of gets pushed on the back burner.
It's tough. Feels like everything's been done. They're just rehashing or keeping it as simple and stupid as possible just to make money. I mean, the box office has the same 3 films genre-wise. It's just, Marvel, superheroes or some big action movie. No, they're entertaining. Obviously, they make a lot of money, but sometimes you go to these little theaters like in Bryn Mawr and they're showing this indie film with a star. Like there was a Jake Gyllenhaal movie, I forget, and it only played in like 3 theaters, even remotely in the area. And I thought it was brilliant. And it was a super small budget, and it was way better than anything I saw in related to box office. So I think there's an element we're just missing right now with movies. And I'm not saying we're the answer to that, but we got to make independent things that get on people's radar again. And everybody's afraid to make something for hurting other people's feelings or politically correct, and nobody's making comedies anymore. Well, there's nothing out. So, Deadpool, obviously comedy, but it's also a rated R, and they can get away with pretty much saying anything they want. People accept that. What was the last comedy? So,
we got to rewind Chevy Chase back 40 years, don't we?
Oh,
Dennis? Yeah. I know you'll appreciate this T-shirt.
Oh, I couldn't even see it.
Caddyshack.
There we go.
Nice.
Word for you today, my friend.
There we go. It was hidden by the mic.
Well, it's hard to land on the radar, isn't it? But nevertheless, you guys managed to, get a notch on the belt, a win at Tarzana, and the film, it's the little film that could, and it did see the light of day, and it did get recognition. But like, as you said, more importantly, it found a home on Amazon. Take me through quickly the process of getting that on Prime.
Not easy. You would think that, let me just submit it, and maybe in a week they'll launch it. It took 3 months, filling out questionnaires. What's the film about? Synopsis. I mean, everything that your film already kind of has, but it's extensive. You fill it all out. And then you have to put bank statement information in there, routing numbers. I mean, because they somehow they have to pay you tax ID information. Trust me, we're not making money on this whatsoever. We'll be in the hole forever. We'll make like 25 cents. Somebody buys it. So it's not about that. We just want people to see it. But the process of getting it on Prime was not as quick as you would think. So if somebody has a film ready to go up and they're telling their friends, like I did a little bit, just kind of hinting on Facebook, it'll be up soon. Flash forward 3 months later, it finally popped up. They have millions of submissions that they probably have a team of 10 people, 20, I don't know, but that have to watch everything for licensing purposes, make sure that anybody's names or businesses are attached, that they have to get clearance. And I can't imagine how many films they have to sift through just to get to yours and then approve it. So I get why it takes a long time, but if you want to get it on Prime, prepare ahead for you. Give yourself enough time of a release date. Just assume 3 months it might take. Could be sooner, but that was our scenario. And John and I were talking one day on the phone, like, let's get this thing on Prime. Let's, maybe by the weekend we'll have it up. And then wasn't even close to that. So
it was a long weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a 3-month weekend. Yeah. So, but exciting nonetheless. As soon as it did, I refreshed it every day, and as soon as it came up, I called him. I was like, "This is awesome! It's up." So, quite a long, arduous process. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, the whole thing is. But again, clearly the both of you have passion. You had a vision, and how cool that a little seed of an idea years ago sees the light of day, and it helps people along the way as well. I sincerely hope you make this into a feature. I hope that the hipster makes a triumphant return with a few snarky insults. I'm game. I'm available.
Yeah.
And when you get down to it, is there a pearl of wisdom that another man's trash left you with that you carry with you, not just in terms of navigating your acting and entertainment careers, but in life in general?
Yeah, I have one. Real quick, there won't be too long on this, but learn to, in the process of making a film, or even, getting your acting career going or learning how to act, find a way to compartmentalize. And that, what I mean by that is like, I want you to ride that reset button. I mean, speak for myself. I know that if I feel like something didn't go the way I wanted it to, it could linger a little bit in the mind, and that could hinder something that's next in line. So in the example of making a movie, if a scene didn't go perfectly, and because of time constraints, we got to go to the next one. Compartmentalize it. Get your head back to par. Hit that reset button, and then grab what's next. It's just like you're starting off, and it's going to be great, because a lot can be aided and fixed in the in post, in the edit, and you never really know how good or bad something went. So I would definitely say through the whole process, whether it's making the film, getting the film out there, try to reset, compartmentalize anything that's giving you a bad vibe. That's the only way to kind of get through without, falling into a depression or quitting or anything, like all these negative things that will come. That would be my advice. Just ride that reset button, compartmentalize the negative, and start over and get after it again.
I guess for me, just ask for help. I tend to want to control and do things on my own, and you gotta rely on people. You gotta ask for help, and then not just the people you gotta ask strangers for help when it comes to raising money or just locations. Don't be afraid to ask. A lot of times people want to help.
Yeah.
When it comes to this film, whether it's the last thing I ever do, I'm content. I hope to obviously do a lot more. Acting is my passion. That's what I would rather do every day than what I do now, even though I enjoy it. But if it's the only thing I do, it's up on Prime. We made a good short film. People can enjoy it. And I think I can be content with that and be proud of it. Hope there's more to come. But how many people talk about making something and never do it? There's a lot of talk in this industry. Everybody has an idea and never does a thing about it. So just go out and try, because we didn't know how to make a $60,000 30-minute short film when we started. And I think at the end of it, we can take a lot from that and be a hell of a lot more prepared and way better for it. Obviously thank our team that helped us along the way. So can't negate that. But I'm incredibly proud of this film. I think John is too. So,
well, you're right. A lot, something to be proud of indeed. And guys, you're right. A lot of people do talk, but Dennis Jeantet and John Giordano, you guys walked the talk. You did it. You executed. You took action, and you created a project that not only people are proud of, but the community benefited as well. And I sincerely hope that it becomes a feature. And if not, then I'm looking forward to your next adventure, your next idea, and don't forget your friends.
Right. We got you always.
Guys, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on set.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paul.
All right, guys. Thank you, man.